160. He's gone.
What's up, guys? So today we're doing part one of the VROD project, and the goal is to get this fiberglass tail nice and attached. So this thing is actually designed to sit quite nicely like this and bolt to right here, but as you can see, this part of the fiberglass is broken off. And so what we will be doing today is we will be sanding down this area right in here in order to cut out and fabricate a metal plate out of this 22 gauge steel, and then we're going to drill a hole, and that's going to mount up to there because the rest of the tail stays snugly. You just need something to unslide off the back. Furthermore, we're going to be using this JB weld to attach it, this little 2-inch orbital sander to sand down this area before we JB weld everything. Some black spray paint is needed for the metal once we get the metal cleaned up and set up. And most importantly, you're going to need PPE protection. So glasses on glasses, and make sure you get one of these 3M respirators. They're a really excellent tool to have around the shop, and they come with a number of these filters that are good for all kinds of stuff. I like these 2097s as a good all-around filter if you're doing specific welding work. You want to get some different filters, chemicals, different filters, particulate. These are pretty good. And so that's basically the game plan. And so hopefully by the end of tonight, we should have this tail all done, and then we'll be able to move on to the seat in the next part. So this thing's actually pretty hefty and pretty solid on its own. So when we slide it into place and the seat folds down, you can see that it ends right here, which is okay visually. But this part comes a little further forward, and we're going to try to actually reinforce this area right here a little bit as well. But basically what we're going to need is we're going to need a piece of metal that's going to fold up under here to help distribute the load, fold down here, and then come forward here. So first things first, we're going to suit up with our PPE, and we're going to sand down this area so that it's ready to take metal, as well as sanding down this area right here so that we can put down a few layers of fiberglass over here after we are done to kind of help reinforce this area a little bit. Okay, so this is going to be what we'll call it 4 inches wide, and where's the crease start? 4 inches wide, 3 inches deep. So the first thing we're going to draw here is going to be off this corner. Let's see, 4 inches. So this is going to be our base plate, and now off of this, we need to see how far down we have to go. So when this sits where it's supposed to sit, there is approximately, we'll call it 2.5 inches downward travel, and then another inch of space for the bolts. So 2.5 inches downward travel, down, and then this is our bolt hole somewhere right here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get, we can use the plasma cutter, we can use just shears on this, basically cut this down, and then we're going to use the vise as a brake to kind of bend it up. so what we're going to do is we're actually going to just line here. And bend it like that. It helps with this as well. What you want is you want to hold it right there. That'll give you a nice crisp line, see? And so glue that there. Maybe just a touch more angle, like that. And then we're going to want to bend, since we're doing it this way, we want to bend this flat going that way. So now we can use that. Like that, and go this direction, right? Yeah, that's what we want. We need to increase our bend angle and drill a hole right here in the center. So the next thing we want to do is we want to take some acetone, and I was using this. This is recycled acetone. So it's a little dark. But now you just want to take a little bit of acetone, put it on a rag, and clean off any possible areas. Might have some dust on them. See, they have grit on them. And then we're going to obviously clean off the metal part too. Make sure it's dry and clean. And then we can start getting set up. Now, before I actually put the adhesive on here, we need to figure out how exactly we're going to clamp this. Now, with epoxy, you don't necessarily need to use a whole ton of it, but you do need to make sure it is well mixed and you get good spread over the area. So you can see it's getting a little cloudy. That means it's mixing. And the other thing is you want to make sure you stay within the working time. So don't mix up a whole lot. It's always easy to mix up a little bit more if you need to. Yeah, so there you go. It's nice and mixed. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to just spread it out on here like icing on a cake. And the reason we're doing this is because you don't really want it to spread too much under pressure. You want there to be a nice thick layer of actual epoxy on the stuff you're working for, and you don't want it really oozing out the sides either. So you want to make sure you have a nice even distribution and plenty of epoxy. And then when you're, don't worry about spreading it out over both sides if you can. So now what we want to do that, and you can see it's kind of floating a little bit. So we want to make sure that we have it positioned exactly where we want. So then when we set So there you go. You can see we have a little bit of a gap like we're supposed to. We have a nice flat contact surface and we have quite a bit of weight pushing down. And so we can start the clock. It's what, 5:40? So around 6:40 this should be permanently cemented into place for the rest of eternity. And that means we'll be able to remove our weights and test fit. And with things like this, remember, it's always easier to make this hole a little bigger if it's a little off center or something like that. It's going to be damn near impossible to peel this off of here. So always try to err on the side of caution with stuff like this. That's exactly where we need it to be, so I'm going to leave it there and not touch it so it doesn't get moved. But I'll show you guys what it looks like when we pop it back on as soon as it's done drying. So it's been about 45 minutes, everything is set, so I went ahead and took this out, and there it is, it's mounted up. I mean, you can see there's still a little bit of flex here, but as far as coming off the bike, it's not going anywhere. Found a nice little nut, and one of the things we can do is we can actually trim this down if we want. I mean, the seat closes just fine as is, but what we can do is we can actually mark this off and trim this off if we wanted to. And I think that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. Just probably take a grinder to it or something, but something like that, and like that, and what we can do is we can cut it down, and then we got to spray paint it, and that's pretty much it for getting this seat all put back together. This stuff is all covered up by the seat, and so I'm not really worried about some of these cracks and stuff. Nothing's going to happen to them. So I'm going to get this off, get the shave down, get it spray painted, get it hung up, and should be good to roll on this seat. So there we go, trimmed it out a little bit, taped it all up. Now we're going to spray gloss black so it doesn't rust here on the outside and on the inside, and basically as much as we can. And hopefully it looks good. Works really well. Pretty happy with this little project.